So we'll continue with our workers, but here we're talking about limiting factors. When you're talking about limiting factors, we're talking about factors that would limit your choice of occupation. People like to have a well-paid job. People want to work in a place that is conducive. Yes or no?
Yes.
People want to work in a place that they will get higher pay. Yes or no?
Yes.
So, but these things might not be possible. So, what are those things that will limit your chances of finding your dream job? That is what limiting factors is about. So let's check. Let's say most people. Okay, let's say most people would obviously like a well-paid, satisfying job with good working conditions, long holidays, generous fringe benefits, good career prospects, and a convenient location. In practice, however, people's choice of occupation is limited to a number of factors, including the qualification they have. So the first thing that might hinder your dream job is your qualification. You want the job, but you are not qualified for that job, so you won't be getting the job. That's the first limiting factor. Do you get that?
Yes.
The second one, the skills they possess. So you might have the qualification, but you lack the skills needed for that job, so you won't get the job. That's the second point. The third point, the experience they have, the experience. Some jobs they will tell you they need 4 years experience, they need 5 years experience. You have the qualification, you have the skills, but because you lack the experience needed to attain or to get that job, you're not going to get the job. So a limiting factor is based on your experience. That's the third one. The first one we talked about is your qualification. The second one is the skills you possess. The skills might not be in tune or in line with the job available. And the third one you're talking about here is experience. So experience is also can be your experience can also be a factor that would deter your opportunity of getting your dream job or landing your dream job.
So it's qualification, skills, and
experience for now. And the last one here they said, okay, they have and the place where they live. So you might not be choosing that job. You might not be getting that job because of your location. Maybe it's too far away from where you are. And even if it might be easier for you, but maybe you have to consider your family and you won't be able to. So your location, your geographical location might limit your choice of occupation. Your skills might limit your choice of occupation. Your experience might limit your choice of occupation. Your qualification might limit your choice of occupation. Is it clear? Good. Shall we move on?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So we go to occupational choice and opportunity cost. Choosing to take up one occupation involves rejecting other occupations. So there's a choice to make. You're making a choice. And if I've chosen to be a teacher, it means I won't be able to be a doctor. So me choosing to be this means I've forgone one thing or the other. I've forgone one profession or the other. So that's the point I'm making. So choosing to take up one occupation means you have rejected another occupation. So workers have to decide what is important to them. A worker may be prepared to give up a well-paid job or the opportunity to undertake such as job, or the opportunity to undertake such as job in favor of a less well-paid job that offers more job satisfaction. So, as a worker, you might choose a job. You might decide not to choose the job because the job is not satisfying. There's no job satisfaction with that job. And you know, job satisfaction is a non-wage factor. So you choose that job based on non-wage factor, not wage factor. So you decided to go for job satisfaction instead of higher pay. That is the point here. So choosing jobs or making a choice as you deciding to take job satisfaction might mean that you won't be having a job that will pay you more. So do you get what I'm saying here?
Yes, yes.
There's opportunity for you to take a job that is high paying, and there's another opportunity to take a job that has job satisfaction. So you don't have both, you don't have the luxury to choose both. You need to choose one. So if you are choosing job satisfaction, it means high paying job becomes the opportunity cost.
Yes, yes.
Is it clear?
Yes, yes.
Shall we move on?
Yes.
So go to wage determination and the reasons for differences in earnings. So what are the factors that determine the amount of money we earn? That is, and what are the reasons why people of different occupations learn or earn different pay? Do you get it? Okay. The key factors that determine the amount of pay received by workers and why some workers earn more than others are demand for and supply of their labor. So the key factors that determine how much more you get or how much less you get is the demand for labor and the supply of labor. If the demand for labor increases, the wage rates will increase. If the supply of labor increases for a particular job, the wage rate will fall because there are a lot of people wanting that job. So people, they will be open to take even lesser pay to get that job. That is for supply of labor. So that's why a key factor that we would need to put into consideration when determining the wage of a certain occupation is the demand for and the supply of labor in such industry. Is it clear?
Yes.
So other influencing factors include the relative bargaining power of employers and workers. The other factor, the second one here, is how you can bargain your skills, your negotiating skills. So if your employers are able to negotiate better than you, then they keep more money to themselves, they pay you less. But if you have that skill to negotiate better than them, if you have that bargaining power over your employers, you get more than them. You get more than what they want to give to you. That is bargaining power. The first factor that determines wages are the demand for and supply of labor. The second one we're talking about is your bargaining power. When we talk about bargaining power, that's the negotiation between the employer and the employee. If the employers have upper hand over the employees, they pay off employees less. But if employees have bargaining power better than the employers, they get more. So it depends on your negotiation skills. Is it clear?
Yes.
The third point, government policies. So government rules and regulations, maybe minimum wage rates. Do you understand?
Yes.
This could also determine the amount of wages individuals could get. Is it clear? And the fourth one, public opinion. What do people say about wage rates these days? And especially, politicians, government, they need public opinion. So if people are criticizing the lower wage rates, then government might, or firms might increase the pay. Do you understand? That's public opinion. And the last one is discrimination. Wage differences because of discrimination is not bad, but unfair discrimination is bad. I could earn more than you because I've got that qualification and experience. That if I'm earning more than you because of my qualification and my experience, it is fair discrimination. But if I'm earning than you because I am a Libyan and you are not a Libyan, that is unfair discrimination. Do you understand? So without discrimination, we can't separate the good from the bad. Without discrimination, you can't separate the good from the bad. But when you are discriminating, make it fairly, justly. Is it clear?
Yes.
Now we go to the first one, now demand and supply. The higher the demand for labor, the higher the demand for and the lower the supply of workers in an occupation, the higher pay is likely to be, the higher the pay is likely to be. If the supply of labor is less in the teaching, okay, let's assume that the supply of teachers in this country is less. It means the wage rate for teachers will increase. But if the demand for teachers for the wage rates, if the demand for workers is high in an industry, the wage rate will be high. And if the supply of worker in certain industry is less, the wage rates will also be high.
Yeah.
Do you understand the point?
Yeah.
Demand, because the supply is less.
Supply is less, demand is high, price is high.
Demand is high, supply is less, wage rate will also rise.
Yeah, not price, wage.
Wage rates.
Yes, yes.
Do you get it? That's the point I'm making there. Clear?
Yes.
Okay. So the market for doctors and cleaners, the supply of doctors is low relative to the demand for their services. So there's only a limited number of people with the necessary qualifications and willingness and ability to undertake a long period of challenging training to become a doctor, to become doctors. So as a result, what happens? It might also be expected that supply of cleaners will be low and their pay high, as few people wouldn't want to work as cleaners. Cleaning is not particularly interesting job, as it can involve unsociable hours. Not every pleasant working conditions and does not usually offer good career prospects. So the supply of cleaners, nevertheless, is often high relative to their demand. This is because although some people may not be keen to work as cleaners, they do so because the job does not require any qualifications or special skills, and only a minimum amount of training is sufficient. This often results in the supply of cleaners being high relative to their demand. So what they're saying is sometimes you don't see it like, oh, just works that have higher qualifications, that their demand is high. No, even some works that do not need qualifications, their demand might be high, like the cleaners. No, people don't want to do cleaners. So as a result, the demand for cleaners might be higher than the supply. That is the point they are making here. So as a result, the pay for cleaners might also what? Increase. Unless
demand will decrease. It will decrease.
If the demand increases, wage rate will rise.
Yes, but in cleaners.
Cleaners, yes. If there are no people wanting to do it,
demand will decrease.
Demand will increase. Demand for
the cleaners.
Yes. The supply is less. Supply is the cleaners.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think you're not.
Didn't get the supplier.
No. Demand for labor is the total number of workers that firms are willing to employ at a given wage rate. That is demand for labor. The number of workers firms, employers are willing to employ at a given wage rate. That is demand for labor. Supply of labor is the total number of workers making themselves available for a job at a given wage rate. So, if the demand for labor increases, the wage rate of labor will increase. If the supply of labor falls in a certain occupation, the wage rate will also what? Increase. So now we are using cleaners and doctors. The demand for doctors is high. Yes or no?
Yes.
But that makes their wage rate to what? To be high. Yes. But for cleaners, cleaning doesn't need special qualification, and it needs only less training. Yes or no?
Yes.
But people don't want to do cleaners.
Yes.
As a result of that, the supply of labor is less, isn't it? Yes. The supply of cleaners is less. So as a result of that, the wage rate of cleaners might increase. Do you get it? Yes. So the demand for and supply of might determine how the wage would be. So if the demand for labor is increasing, the wage rate will increase. If the supply of labor is reducing, the wage rate will also what? Increase. Is it clear now? Yes. Now, unskilled workers are generally paid less than skilled workers. Demand for skilled workers is high, while their supply is low. There are two main influences on the demand for workers. One is the amount of output they can produce, and the other is the price for which that output can be sold. So there are two things. Labor is a derived demand. Put that in mind. Labor is what? A derived demand. It means you won't be employing workers if they don't have anything to do with you. You can't just employ somebody and start paying him or her without doing anything. Yes or no? Yes. So that's why demand for labor is what? A derived demand. Workers are employed because of what they have to produce. Do you get it? So that's what they are saying here, that they are skilled labor, they are unskilled labor. Skilled workers tend to get higher pay than unskilled workers, because the demand for skilled workers is high than the supply of skilled workers. Because to become a skilled worker, it goes through rigorous training. It goes through different qualifications, different skills, different trainings, which unskilled workers do not need. So investing on education, on training, would mean that you are a skilled employee or you are a skilled worker. Because you are a skilled worker, the demand for your service will always increase. As a result, you could get more pay. Do you get it? Yes. So what are the two factors that determine the demand for skilled workers? The first one is the output they want to produce. What do they want to produce?
The amount of output
And the price at which those outputs will be sold. Do you get the point here? Just as if, for example, teachers. You know, there are some teachers that when you, oh, Mr. X or Mr. X, if Mr. X is coming to this school, a lot of students will come to that school because of Mr. X. So the wage rate of Mr. X might increase as a result of that. That's the first point. And why is it like that? Because of what Mr. X would give to students. Do you get it? So that's the first point they made there. The output that will be produced by that worker. And the second one is what? The price at which they will be able, the firms will be able to sell that output. So if a call center, for example, a call center is able to get a very good teacher, the call center might charge higher prices, higher tuition. People would pay, students would pay, because every student wants a better teacher. So that is the 2 points they made there. Those are the 2 points. Yes. Is it clear? Yes. So, okay. So, skilled workers are usually highly productive, producing both a high quantity and a high quality of output per hour. Also, the supply of skilled workers is usually lower than the unskilled workers. So these are the reasons why you have to employ skilled workers. Skilled workers will give you better output with quality. And they are reliable. You can always count on them. They will increase their productivity, which these things are good for the firms. These things are good for the employers. So they will always want them. That is the point they are making. Now go to supply. Supply also explains why some workers who are involved in dangerous jobs are well paid. There's a limited supply of people who are willing to work as steeplejacks. To try to overcome this reluctance, a number of employers pay workers undertaking this job a higher rate than paid to other building workers. So those that work, you know, those that like steep jackers and those that work on jobs that are risky, that could take people's life, they get more pay than those works that is less risky. That's the point they're making. Yes, is it clear? Yes. The next paragraph. The supply of workers in the agricultural and manufacturing sectors varies in a number of countries, including some Asian and African countries. There's a surplus of agricultural workers, which results in lower agricultural wages. So look at agriculture. There's always an increase there's a large supply of agricultural workers. As a result, the wage rate of agricultural workers is what? Less. That is the point. Is it clear? Yes. So the demand for and the price of products made by manufacturing industries tend to increase at a more rapid rate than those made by primary sectors. So the secondary sector industry, the demand for their products is high. As a result, they'll be able to pay workers high salary, unlike those goods that are produced in the primary sector. The demand for goods in the primary sector is less. So as a result, they get lower pay. That is the point. So the tertiary sector pay more than the secondary sector, and the secondary sector pay more than the primary sector. That is all the summary. Is it clear? Yes. Then demand and supply. Demand and supply of workers in the private and public sectors vary among countries. So another differences in wages is based on the private sector, and the public sector. The private sector's aim and objective is to maximize profit. Yes or no? Yes. So because the private sector wants to maximize profit, they might be able to pay more. Sorry. Sorry, I'm just going to go to 235. Page, what are we, please? 150. Yes. Chapter what?
18.
Okay. Paste. So we go to relative bargaining power of employers and employees. I've explained these things before. We said for bargaining power, we're talking about how good you are as an employee to negotiate your terms of employment with your employers. So if you are able to do that well, you get more pay. If you are unable, then you get less. That's about bargaining power, and that's bargaining power of employers and employees. I think that is clear. So we'll go down, please. For the public sector workers, yeah, we said for public sector workers, are you in the same page as I am?
This is 151, no? Finish relative.
Yeah.
And now we're going to go to public sector.
Yeah. So for public sector, that's the next paragraph, right?
Yes.
Public sector workers in many countries, including the UK and India, are more likely to belong to trade union or professional organization than private sector workers. In some cases, this can be contributed to the fact that the government are more willing to negotiate with trade unions than private sector employers. In other cases, it is because public sector workers find it easier to get together to operate as one bargaining body. So what they are saying is this: the public sector workers in many countries might be in the trade union, because when you are in the trade union, government doesn't have any problem negotiating with trade union members. But the private sector, because they are profit oriented, they don't want trade union. Because what do you know who trade unions are? Trade unions are a group of people that have come together to protect the interests of workers. They are workers that come together to protect their own interests. These are who we call trade unions. They have their ESCOs, their executives. So trade unions, what do? They negotiate for their members so that employers can pay them more. So government is open to do that. But private sector businesses do not like trade union, because they believe trade union members or trade union as a group increases their cost of wages.
Mhm.
Do you understand?
Yes.
So, yes, public sector workers also tend to be affected by government labor market policies more than their counterparts in the private sector. These policies may or may not raise wages. A government is, for example, likely to ensure that all its workers are paid at or above a national minimum wage, whereas some private sector firms may seek to find ways around such legislation. If, however, a government introduces a policy to hold down wage rises in a bid to reduce inflationary pressure, it is a stronger position to restrict the wage rises of its own worker. What they are saying is this: the public sector business, or the government, because government controls the public sector, yes or no?
Yes.
So government can come up with policy like the national minimum wage. So for national minimum wage, that means you shouldn't pay the lowest worker less than that amount that is being stated by law. So if you are doing that, you are against the law. But the private sector businesses, they can find a way around it and pay lesser than the national minimum wage. You get it?
It's illegal, right?
Yeah, it's legal, but they can find a way around it.
How?
You need a job.
Yes.
Government job is not forthcoming.
Mm-hmm.
So if government job is not forthcoming and the private sector is offering you a job at a lesser pay, won't you take it?
Yeah.
That is the point. Is it clear?
Yes.
So we'll go to government policies. Government policies affect wages in a variety of ways. A government clearly influences the wage of those workers whom it employs in the public sector. Its policies also influence wages in the private sector. Those policies which promote economic growth tend to push up wages throughout the economy as increased demand for labor. So government can come up with policies, and these policies are aimed at increasing the economic growth of that economy. So government wants to boost the economy. And to do that, government might come up with policy that will increase the wages. Because if wages increases, demand for goods and services will increase. Yes or no?
Yes.
As a result, output will increase. Because output is increasing, firms will be making more money, more profit, and they will continue to invest more too. So government might come up with government might come up with different policies to encourage production and output, because firms or workers have more money now to spend. So disposable income will increase. That is the point they are making there. Specific government policies may have an impact on particular occupations. For example, if the government is introduced a law requiring car drivers to take a test every 10 years, demand for driving instructors would be likely to rise, pushing up their wages. So in a nutshell, what they are talking about here is that if government feel Government knows a way to come up with policies, to come up with regulations, to come up with laws that will increase the wage rate. So if government wants to boost the economy, government knows how to do it. That is the point. Is it clear?
Yes.
Let's just go down, please. Public opinion. Are you there?
Yes.
Public opinion tends to consider that jobs which involve long periods of study and training should be highly rewarded. There are variations in how some occupations are regarded in different countries. For example, engineering and the rest. The second paragraph, public opinion can influence wage rate in a number of ways. One is through the wage claims made by the workers. For example, firefighters. So basically when we talk about public opinion, we're talking about what people say about their wages. This can go a long way to increase their wages. So people will clamor, they will complain, say, no, teachers are not paid well. Oh, doctors are not paid well. This is a public opinion that the government has to work on. So this might increase the wage rate. That is the point about public opinion. I think it's clear.
Yes.
That's all about public opinion. So go down. Discrimination. I told you already about discrimination. We said discrimination occurs when a group of workers is treated unfavorably in terms of employment. The wage rate is the training received or promotional opportunities. For example, some employers will be reluctant to have female workers. The lower the demand will result in lower pay. So we talked about discrimination already. You getting paid because you are a female, and me getting paid doing the same job, having the same qualification, I'm getting less pay because I'm a male. So these are discrimination. So discrimination also affects the wage rate. So some workers will get more, some workers will get less because they are unfairly discriminated. That is the point. Is it clear?
Yes.
So you look at the paragraph, it said increasingly, government are making such discrimination illegal, like you asked me the other time. It is illegal to discriminate unfairly. Do you understand?
Yes, yes.
So that's the point there. So why earnings of occupation change over time? Now, earnings can change over time. That means you might be earning 5,000 now, and within a short period of time or long period of time, you start earning 7,000, 8,000, and so on. So what happens? Why earnings of occupation change over time? Change in demand and supply of labor. That's the first step. So the main reason for a rise or less commonly fall in earnings is a change in demand or supply of labor. Other reasons include changes in the stages of production, in bargaining power, changes in government policies, and changes in public opinion. So all what we talked about wage factors, are those reasons why there are changes in occupation over a period of time. But what you just have to put here is changes in. Listen, what I'm saying is this. Factors that affect different earnings, what you earn and what are earned, are discrimination, qualification, right? Discrimination, qualification, skills, all these things, public opinion, what else do we talk about? Bargaining power.
Yes.
All these things are factors that affect your wage rate. Yes or no?
Yes.
So now they are saying, what are the factors that affect changes in the wage rates? So changes in qualification, changes in bargaining power, changes in public opinion, changes in government policies are the reasons why there are changes in occupation earnings over a period of time. Do you get it or not? So the first one is changes in the demand for labor. If the demand for labor from less becomes high, the wage rate will increase. If there is high demand for labor before now, and now there is less demand for labor, the wage rate will fall. Changes. If the supply of labor is less than before, or maybe now the supply of labor is less, now the supply of labor is high, the wage rate will reduce. That is what changes in demand for and supply of labor means. Is it clear?
Yes.
So a changes in demand for labor will shift the demand curve leftward from D1 to D. As a result, the wage rate will fall from W1 to W. Is it clear?
Yeah.
So these are just logical things that you should understand.
Yes.
Changes in supply. If the supply curve, if there is an increase in the supply curve, if there's an increase in the supply for labor from S1 to S, the wage rate will increase if there is, if there's an increase in supply of labor from S1 to
Where's the
S,
S1?
the wage rate will fall from W1 to W. Do you get it?
Yes, yes.
Because the supply of labor has increased, the wage rate would fall. That is the point there. Is it clear?
Yes.
So changes in stages of production. We have the primary, now we're talking about changes in, do you know what we're talking about here? We're talking about different reasons why there are changes in earnings in different occupations.
Yes.
The first one we talked about is demand for labor. We talked about supply of labor. You know, these are also the factors that determine the wage rate. Yes or no?
Yes.
So now, changes in the stages of production. If the demand in if the primary sector, if the demand for labor in the primary sector is increasing, the wage rate in the primary sector would increase. If the demand for labor in the secondary sector is increasing, the wage rate in the secondary sector would increase. Do you understand? That is the point they are making there. Is it clear or not?
Yes, sir.
Changes in bargaining power. Trade unions, they bargain. If the actions of trade unions, if trade unions have more power than they used to have, then the demand for the wage rate they will be able to negotiate better. So their members will be able to get more pay. That means the wage rate will increase. But if trade unions become less popular, their bargaining power would fall. They won't be able to negotiate higher pay for their workers, for their members. Then the wage rate would fall. Is it clear?
Yes.
Changes in government policy. The pay of public sector, which is likely to rise if the government decides to expand the public sector. A government decision to reduce road building in contrast may reduce the wages of those working for the private sector, road construction firms. Among other ways, a government can change wage rates. So what they are saying is this: if governments come up with policy to increase the public sector businesses, to increase public sector, that means wage rate will increase because more workers will be needed in the public sector. On the other hand, if government stop giving contracts to private sector businesses, the wage rate in the private sector would fall because the private sector businesses that rely mostly on government contracts are not getting contracts anymore. So they won't be able to pay higher pay. What do they want to pay for? When they are not getting contracts, they are not getting jobs. Is it clear?
Yes.
Other ways in which government can change wages are one, increasing the national minimum wage. Government can increase the national minimum wage. And if government increases the national minimum wage, it means firms should pay above the equilibrium wage rates.
Yes.
Two, despite the rise in the supply, improved education may actually raise the wage of skilled workers as may increase their demand more than the supply. This is because employing more skilled workers should reduce cost of production and increase international competitiveness. If this is the case, demand for products produced by these countries' firms should increase and more multinational companies may be attracted to set up their franchises in the country. Government can also use supply side policies. We call it supply side policy, which is the use of training, education to improve or to boost the workforce. Training will increase your skills, your knowledge, your expertise, yes or no? Yes. So as a result of going through this training and having better education, your output, your productivity will increase. And if your productivity increase as a worker, your companies that you work for, their output will increase. As the output is increasing, as the output are increasing, a lot of exports will be done from your country. And multinational companies might be attracted to your country because you have skilled workers. Companies will come to your country because your country possesses educated people. Do you get how it works? That is the point they are making. So the third point, government policies on immigration can also affect wages. If government is encouraging immigrants, maybe the supply of labor is less in this country. Government might encourage workers to come into this country to work. As a result, their wage rate, they will do that by increasing the wage rate. That is the point. Is it clear?
Yes.
The last one, advances in technology. That's another ways in which government can also, when technology is improving, wage rates might fall. Because jobs will start with doing, there will be technology will replace workers. So the demand for workers will be less. So there will be more supply of workers. As a result, the wage rate would fall. That is the point about technology. Clear, right?
Yes.
Changes in public opinion. If public opinion changes, like we talked about public opinion already. So if what people say about wages changes, the demand for wage rate will also change. Changes in the handling of individuals over time. In your work life, when you are younger, your wage rate is less. When you reach a certain age, your wage rate will increase. But there's going to be a stage that your wage rate will not go above it. That's your work life. That is what they're saying here. So when you still have that capacity, ability to work more, your wage rate can increase. But there's going to be a stage that you can't do more or less. Then your wage rate remains constant. After that, it will start declining. Clear? The extent to which any changes. They said the magnitude of change in the wage rate due to a change in demand for or supply of labor is influenced not only by the size of the change, but also the elasticity of demand for and the elasticity of supply of. So what they are saying is the proportion of wages based on the supply of workers and the demand of workers. So it is not only these factors that changes wage rate. Degree of responsiveness based on the wage rate can also determine the wage rate. What they're saying is if wage rate increases and the demand for labor is responding to that increase in wage rate, then the wage rate might fall. To get it?
Yes.
So the extent of the degree of responsiveness towards an increase or towards a change in wage rate can determine the kind of wage rate we get. You get it?
Yes.
So when they said the influence of elasticity on the effect of increase in demand for labor, one, the proportion of labor cost in total cost. If labor costs from a large proportion of total cost, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. If labor costs from a large proportion of total cost, if labor costs form a large proportion of total cost, a change in wages would have a significant impact on cost, and hence demand would be elastic. What they are saying is this: if the cost of labor takes a huge part, takes a large proportion of the total overall cost of a company, of a firm, that means the wage rate is demand elastic. So you have to reduce the wage rate because it's taking much more than the other cost, other overhead cost. The ease with which labor can be substituted for by capital. If it is easier to replace workers with machine, then the demand will be elastic. But if it is difficult to replace workers with machine, the demand for labor will be inelastic. We're talking about the demand for labor. How is it going to be elastic and how is it inelastic? If the cost of labor is higher, the demand for labor is elastic. If it's easier to change from labor to machine, the demand for labor is elastic. If it is difficult, the demand for labor is inelastic. The elasticity of demand for the product produced. If the product, a rise in wage rate increases cost of production, which in turn raises the price of the product. This causes demand for the product to contract and demand for labor to fall. If the cost of production is increasing and the wage rate is also increasing, firms would stop employing workers and they will stop producing. So the demand for labor would fall and the production also would fall. That is the point they are making. Is it clear?
Yes.
The time period. Demand for labor is usually more elastic in the long run, as there is more time for firms to change their methods of production. In the long run, the demand for labor is elastic because at that point in time, firms can plan on when to stop using workers to start using machines. So in the long time, the demand for labor is what? Elastic. Is it clear?
Yes.
The qualifications and skills required. The more qualifications and skills needed, the more inelastic supply will be. So the supply of labor will be inelastic if there's need for more qualifications and more skills before the job is gotten.
Yes.
Because it's going to take you more qualification. And to get more qualification, it takes time to get this qualification. As a result, the supply of labor would be less. And wage rate would what? Would rise. Is it clear?
Yes.
The length of training period. If the length of training is high, then the demand for labor or the supply of labor would be less because you need to go through those training before you get the job. Clear?
Yes.
The level of employment. If most workers are employed already, the supply of labor to any particular occupation is likely to be inelastic. An employer may have to raise the wage rate quite significantly to attract more workers and encourage the workers employed in other occupations to switch jobs. So if if all employees are engaged, that means the demand for labor would increase and there will be less supply of labor. As a result, wage rate is likely to be increased to attract workers from other firms to come work with you, or to attract workers to switch from their own occupation to your own industry. Is it clear? Mobility of labor. The ease at which you can switch from one job to another will determine if the supply of labor will be elastic or inelastic. If it is easier for me, I was a banker, but now I'm a teacher. If it was easier for me to change from switching from a banker to a teacher, if it is easier, then the supply of labor for teachers would increase because it's easy to switch to become a teacher. But if it is difficult, then the supply of labor would reduce. Is it clear?
Yes.
The time period. As with demand and supply of labor, as with demand, supply of labor tends to become more elastic over time. So
We read the same thing, the same day.
time,
Yeah, the first and the third. Okay.
the time period, right?
Yes, it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same. But what you have to get here is that if they just want you to understand that time period goes with demand, time period goes with supply. Clear?
Yes.
Now go to specialization and division of labor.
Mhm.
Specialization means when you talk about specialization, basically it talks about concentration of an individual in a specific job. That is specialization. You concentrate on this job, and that is what you do. That is specialization. And division of labor would lead to specialization. What is division of labor? Division of labor is the breaking down of production process into different stages, and which each stage can be performed by different people. I'm going to say this. There's specialization. But when we divide jobs into different stages, so you choose a job, you become a math teacher, it becomes a physics teacher, I become a business teacher. So I continue to be a business teacher, you continue to be a math teacher, it continues to be a physics teacher. So now your specialty is math, his specialty is physics, my specialty is business. So with now dividing our job, we become specialists in our job. That's why we say division of labor would lead to specialization. So the definition for division of labor is what? The breaking down of production processes into different stages, which each stage can be performed by a different person. Is it clear?
Yes.
So that's about division of labor. Let me see what we can know about it. And that's all about division of labor. That's what you need to know. So go to multiple choice questions. The first one is, what is the non-wage factor that may influence a person's choice of occupation?
Fringe benefits.
Fringe benefits, thank you. Number two, piece rates are the methods of payment for workers based on piece rates.
Piece rates, yeah. How much of payment to work is based on piece rates, yeah. The output they produce.
What?
The output they produce.
Sorry, let's start again on the first one. The first question says, what is the non-wage factor that may influence a person's choice of occupation?
P, fringe
Benefits, okay.
yes.
Number two, piece rates are methods of payment to workers based on
C, the output they produce.
the output they produce. Number three, what would increase a woman's choice of occupation? A woman's choice of occupation.
Choice, A, an increase in qualification.
An increase in her qualification. Good. Question four. They said point X. There's point X here. In between A, okay, there's point X. Which shows that the market for electricians in the country.
What?
They said point X in the diagram shows.
What is the question?
Yes, point number 4.
Yeah, no,
I'm going to read it for you.
Yeah.
They said point X in the diagram shows the market for electricians in the country. There's an increase in the number of people who train as electricians. Now there's an increase in the number of people who train as electricians. What is the new equilibrium point?
Increase. Yes, so they increase the workers will be increased.
The demand or supply will increase.
Demand and supply will increase. So the wages will increase. If the demand and supply.
Okay. Now, what would happen? They said point X at point X. They said at point X is that the market for electricians. Point X shows the market for electricians. That means the demand and supply is at point X.
Yes, yes.
Now, there's an increase in the number of people who train as electricians.
Who train?
As electricians. So what happens to the supply of electricians? It will shift rightward.
Yeah, rightward, yeah.
To what?
D.
to point D.
Yeah.
Thank you. And if it shifts right to point D, what happens to the wage rate?
The wage rate will be the same, but what is it? The quantity will be more of the labor. Yeah.
The supply of labor would increase
I
to
think
point
it's
D.
A, I don't know.
And what happens to the wage rate?
The wage rate will be the same.
Point X to this. Point X,
Yeah. From X to
a
D.
rightward shift
Rightward shift.
to S1. And what happened?
The wages will be no effect. There are no
It will not affect the
wages.
wage rate.
The quantity only of the labor. That's all.
Okay, what about point C? What happens to point C?
Point C.
Yeah.
Point C, the wages will fall and the quantity will shift rightward, but a little bit, not likely.
So the answer is D.
Yeah.
That's all about that.
Again is